Before we move on to our next topic, I want to remind people that you guys can go to saltynerdclub.com. That takes you directly to our Patreon account, like Jude said at the beginning of the podcast, and you can help support the podcast there. You can pick your tier. You can give us $10, whatever, $5, and you get exclusive content. We're talking full-length episodes, about an hour long or so. We got some blooper reels in there once in a while. You guys, of course, get stickers and some exclusive T-shirts that we're working on pretty soon where you have to be a Patreon member to have access to the T-shirts. So we'll get those set up for you. So please consider going to saltynerdclub.com and supporting the podcast for some awesome content. Moving on, next, I think you picked Captain America, the First Avenger. So why don't you tell us about this movie and why you picked it?
Oh, you want me to break it down?
Oh, it's not that hard.
Well, I don't know. It's Captain America. It's his origin story.
There you go.
I picked this movie because you said, hey, pick a 4th of July patriotic movie. And I said, Captain America? And that's all there was to it.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, so.
I do like Vader was like, nailed it.
But no, it's his origin. It's, it's scrawny little Steve Rogers takes the super serum and becomes the super soldier. And we get Bucky and Red Skull and all the goodness in between. So, and Hydra's in there and, and Tommy Lee Jones. And
oh, yeah, we get introduced to the Tesseract.
The Tesseract.
Was this the first time?
Yeah.
The Tesseract was in Thor, or did that come out after this? That was before this. Okay, so the Tesseract.
That was the square, the blue cube. Which one is that?
That's the Tesseract.
That's the Tesseract? Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of like their introduction to the Infinity Stones.
It's
in the
like
MCU.
my brother said, he goes, oh, back when the MCU was good. It's like, yes.
Why do people say that? I thought they've been pretty good so far.
Yeah,
There's one or two stinkers.
I don't really agree with my brother on that one either.
Yeah, I don't know.
So.
I mean, Thor 2 was kind of meh, and what was it? Yeah, Thor 2 was meh, and Iron Man 3 was kind of, but I mean, on the whole, I think they've been really good.
We'll see how Phase 4 goes, but
I'm done. Like this is.
Are we on Phase 5 now?
Yeah.
Phase 5. Yeah.
I don't know. In my opinion, I think if you're not interested in the direction that they're going with Marvel, like Infinity War and the whole Thanos thing was a perfect time.
But I sat through this thing. I watched it yesterday, and I didn't stop. Usually when I rewatch these movies that we do for the show, I'll push pause and go make a sandwich or something. I'll spend like 4 hours to watch a 2-hour movie, but no, I watched this one from start to finish, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Great.
It's just these original MCU movies are good, man. They're super fun.
I don't like this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's probably one of my least favorite of the Phase 1 Marvel movies.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought Thor and Thor 2 was better?
No, I didn't say that I think they were better. It's one of my least favorite. Like, it doesn't hold up for me. I really, one of the reasons, I'll explain why before you give me all those judgmental looks.
He's good at this judgmental looks.
He's eyeballing me
really
so hard. Like, as far as an origin movie goes, yeah, it's fine. It's an origin movie for Captain America, which is great. Every superhero in the MCU has to have at least, something of an origin movie.
I love Skinny Steve.
Except for Peter Parker. He's just, Skinny Steve. That was like the first time that they used that whole face swapping technology in the MCU, right? Because they put Chris, what's his name?
No, they shrunk him down.
Evans.
No, they didn't.
I think they did.
No, it's another skinny dude actor.
They just had him lose a bunch of weight and then gain a bunch of weight.
No, because he's like a foot and a half shorter than he is. That's not how that works.
Man, I got to go back and watch because I think Steve,
did you watch the wrong movie?
I think he played that same role.
No, they just took his face and they swapped it on a different actor.
Yeah, it was an emaciated actor, and they put his head on.
Just delete this part out. Where I sound like I don't know what
I'm going to
about.
leave
it in.
Same
technology from that Jason Momoa commercial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it was a different actor who played the physical role, and then they just like plastered Chris Evans' face on top, and they just rolled with it. I thought it was. I mean, that worked for me. But the reason why I don't really like this movie is because I was really bummed out that the majority of like the Captain America moments was a freaking montage. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, the most exciting part of this movie, Captain America fighting against Hydra and Nazis in World War II, is like a 1.5-minute montage. Like, what? Why am I here?
To see his origin story.
I'm here to see Captain America fight Nazis in World War II. I don't want a montage.
Got the
I want to see
Commandos. We got his
we got
super
like 30
serum.
seconds of that shit.
Yeah, it's all good.
I was like, come on, man. I want to see that movie. The montage, that little, 3 to 5 minute moment of that. That's what I wanted to see. Give me the origin story at the beginning, the first maybe half of the second act, origin, Captain America, how he became. Second half, give me frickin' Steve Rogers kicking ass on the battlefield and then have him eventually get to Hydra.
I've never felt that way about this movie ever.
Oh, and the graphics and the like. I mean, I think they were going for this purposefully to make it seem like it was an old movie, like the old. Remember that movie with God, what's his name? Jude Law. Was it Captain Skyhawk or whatever it was with something with tomorrow? I can't remember it, but anyway.
Oh, I know. What
Sky Captain.
Sky Captain.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, that movie, how it had that like old school look to it, like it was made in the 50s and it was purposely made like that. I felt like that was done in this in
As
Captain
far as
America.
what?
Just the graphics, like that, the scenes where they were like in that car driving towards the big, giant bomber wing thing as they were escaping, and a lot of the moments where he was in that montage where he was like.
I did think the underground airport hangar bay was pretty enormous, but yeah,
it looks chintzy. It looks bad, like bad green screen. I don't know, man. There's not a lot about this movie that I like. Besides Chris Evans and like the actual building of the character, I think works, but everything around it, I'm kind of like, they could have done so much better.
I just completely disagree with you.
Well,
did you like Marjorie Tyrell, her little appearance, making out with Steve?
Oh yes, absolutely. That wasn't CG.
Yeah. Directed by Joe Johnston, who did Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you like
that? That was a shitty movie.
No, I don't know. I know I'm going to catch a lot of hate for this, but I didn't like the direction that they took this movie. I felt like it had so much more potential.
The issue with this movie, and I actually really like this movie, but the problem is that at the time it was being made, it had to accomplish more than just telling Captain America's story. It had to be a setup for the upcoming Avengers film. Mm-hmm. It had to tie in a lot of stuff from Thor and Iron Man. And in fact, while they were getting ready to shoot this movie, Joss Whedon had just signed on to do the Avengers film. And he did like an uncredited rewrite on this script in order to enhance a lot of the kind of crossover elements to it. So it wasn't just... They couldn't just do like a straight Captain America movie. They had a lot of different things a lot of different boxes that they needed to check for this film. And, but that being said, I think the Captain America movies are like my favorite movies in the MCU.
Yeah, the other two are
by far.
Yeah, the other two are great. Like this is probably my least favorite Captain America one, but originally like the fact that this movie ever got made to begin with is just like it's a miracle, considering all the issues surrounding Marvel's IPs and stuff. But originally, the concept for this was going to be the first movie in the MCU ahead of Iron Man. And it was going to be split where the first half of the movie was going to be in World War II and then the second half was going to be in present day. And Jon Favreau was originally supposed to direct this. And when things got all shuffled around on the Marvel front, Iron Man ended up being the first movie out the door, and Jon Favreau was the one who shepherded that one. And
followed very closely by the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Hulk wasn't really part of the MCU. That was a Universal film.
Yeah, but it was part of the MCU, though, because it had all the tiebacks. It had
technically it was, but I mean... Because,
Tony Stark showed up at the end, too.
Like all the other, like the Iron Man and Captain America and Thor movies, those were all released through Paramount. And Hulk was a Universal thing, and that was from back when Marvel was kind of like auctioning off its IPs. See,
they still have issues with that now. That's why we don't have like
a little bit. See, back in the 90s, for people who aren't familiar with this, Marvel declared bankruptcy. And in order to get out of that, they were, selling licenses to their characters and stuff. And so Spider-Man got sold to Sony, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, and X-Men got sold to Fox, and like a bunch of other stuff. And once the studios kind of got their act together with superhero movies, like the success of Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff, Marvel realized, we could be making a lot more money if we made these movies ourselves. And what Marvel did was unprecedented at the time. Basically, they got a bank loan for like $500 million. And in order to do that, they had to put up as collateral every single one of their IPs that they still had ownership of. So Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all this stuff. And if they had failed in their endeavor to produce their own movies, like if they had put out the first Iron Man and it had bombed, they would have lost everything.
Jeez.
So like they took a huge gamble, and Kevin Feige is really the guy who kind of stepped up and put this in motion. But originally Captain America, the First Avenger, was supposed to be the first movie in the MCU. But for whatever reason, they moved it back to being, I think, the fourth, I think. Something like that.
Because Thor, it was
Iron Man?
Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, and then Captain America, I think.
No, it was Iron Man, Thor, Iron Man 2, Thor 2, then Captain America.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, those Hulk movies aren't.
Yeah, there's a reason why.
Thunderbolt Ross is part of the same.
But that's just fan service. It is. It's fan service.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk, and the Hulk hasn't had his own standalone MCU movie.
Yeah, I just thought there was problems with Edward Norton because he had issues with that movie with the producers and stuff, and they had like a falling out or something.
Well, the issue really is that Universal owns the Hulk IP.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Sony has the Spider-Man IP. So, but there was like a loophole with the Hulk license where basically any standalone Hulk movie had to be done through Universal, but he could show up in other movies without Universal's involvement, which is why he's been relegated to kind of like a secondary character.
Anyway, Captain America. Jude, you haven't said anything yet. How do you feel about this movie?
I like this movie. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I like it. And I don't think I've ever watched Winter Soldier, and it kind of made me want to. So can we do that?
Absolutely. Sure.
I love Winter Soldier.
Love that movie.
Love it.
Yeah. I love that actor, and I can't think of his name. But I like this
Sebastian
movie.
Stan.
Thank you.
You know, what's funny is when they were casting Captain America, so it came down to 3 actors in the final kind of casting round. One was John Krasinski from The Office.
Yep.
He played Jim. The other was Sebastian Stan, and then there was Chris Evans.
Have you ever heard John Krasinski's interview about why he didn't take the role? Or why he just kind of was like, oh, it's hilarious.
Well, it wasn't that he turned it down. He didn't get it.
There's a story. He said it was on a late night show. It was Jimmy Kimmel or somebody.
It was about the Thor body shaming.
Yeah, it's like so he was at Marvel's whatever producing office, and they were talking to him about doing Captain America, and he happened to be around at the same time that Chris Hemsworth was there, and Chris Hemsworth is all like cut up for Thor, like jacked, and John Krasinski looks over at him, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he walks by, and he's like, I'm not going to be Captain America. He's like, there's no way.
You know, it's funny, though, because he's lobbying really hard for the role of Reed Richards.
Yeah, I'm totally for that. I think he would fit perfectly.
I think he'd be great.
Yeah. And, to like give him some credit, though, like there was when he played Jack Ryan, and he buffed up for that role. He looks pretty good. I think he could have pulled off Captain America.
He looks awesome in Shazam.
That's not him. That's
Chuck.
What's his name? Levi.
Oh my God.
We're talking about John Krasinski's from The Office.
I know who you're talking about.
And Jack Ryan.
2 nerd demerits from your nerd card.
They could be brothers.
When you guys are all talking about like these side characters and you name the actors and not the character in the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go along with you. Oh, I totally know who that is.
I'm sorry.
But it's funny because Chris Evans, he originally played the Human Torch in the Fox version of Fantastic Four. And when he was being considered for the role of Captain America, he was kind of iffy on it because he was worried that he was going to get too famous and it was going to ruin his life. And so basically Marvel settled on him, and they went to him and was like, congratulations, Chris Evans, we want you to be Captain America. And he's like, I'm going to pass. So he passed on it. And Marvel, the people at Marvel were like, we really want Chris Evans. And so they went to Robert Downey Jr. and they're like, hey, can you talk to Chris for us? And so Robert Downey Jr. calls up Chris Evans and is like, dude, what the are you doing?
You don't turn down this role.
Yeah. And so
you out of your mind.
And so RDJ convinced Evans to take the role, even though he passed on it. And Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky in the movie, he was like next in line to be Captain America before Chris Evans, took the role. And Marvel was like, we really like this guy. We want to use him. And so like they gave him kind of Bucky as a consolation prize, knowing that he would eventually be Winter Soldier and all this other stuff.
I think that worked out great. I like him, especially in Winter Soldier.
I remember when I found out Chris Evans was going to be Captain America, me and some friends were like,
yeah,
the Human Torch? That guy's an asshole. We can't stand that guy. But
I was really iffy on it too.
Yeah. I can't think of anybody else playing the role now.
Yeah.
Chris Evans is Captain America.
Yeah, he owned it for sure.
And that's just how it is in my head.
And despite my issues with the movie itself, I think the characters in it and the actors that play him are spot on. You got Peggy. I think that was a great addition.
Stanley Tucci.
Tommy Lee Jones as the gruffy drill sergeant guy. Like he was perfect.
Let's be real. Tommy Lee Jones just played Tommy Lee Jones.
Right. Yeah.
I love that moment. We're in the car and he looks up and I'm not gonna kiss you. It's just
Tommy Lee Jones plays K in every movie he's ever in.
Yeah.
He just plays himself.
it works though.
My favorite scene in this movie is the flag scene where they're like, like every recruit has tried to get that flag and they've all failed. And then Captain America, or Steve Rogers just comes along and he pushes over the
Takes the pin out of
flagpole,
it.
yeah, just pulls it to the ground, walks up, takes the flag,
And then drives back.
yeah.
I loves it. I loves it. I love it when he hands it to his commanding officer or whatever, and he's just like, "Thank you, sir."
The thing I really love about this character, the way they treated the character in this movie, Marvel was in kind of an odd position for this film because Captain America you'd think wouldn't play very well overseas, so like they're like, how do we balance the core of the character, which is the symbol of America, with other people's ideals.
Yeah.
And Stanley Tucci's character has a great kind of line in the movie where he talks about how the serum just enhances what's already there. So like, if you're a good person, you become an even better person and stuff along those lines. And we've already seen that, that the character of Steve Rogers is just so like principled and idealistic and set in his ways where like, he's not afraid to go up, against impossible odds and, take a few hits or whatever. Like it's the courage and content of his character, which makes him such an ideal candidate for this role. And when he becomes Captain America, the whole thing is that it's not so much, about America's better than everyone else. It's about being an individual and being strong in the face of adversity and, having courage and not being afraid to do the right thing, even when it's the hardest thing in the world to do.
One of the very first moments that he talks with that with the doctor, and he's like, "So, do you want to go and kill Nazis?" And he's like, "I don't want to kill anybody. I just don't like bullies. It doesn't matter who they are." And I think that principle has been really strong through all of his movies.
That's Captain America, man.
Yeah, exactly. And it even comes in Civil War, especially. They really hammer down that he's like, "No, I don't care what government it is, whether it's America or another. I don't like bullies. I don't like this idea." Of like,
that's fear, not freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it is impressive how across all the movies that Captain America is in, like he stays so consistent in his ideals and his kind of like values, I guess you could say. Like in Winter Soldier, I'm not going to spoil anything for Jude's sake.
But you've never seen it?
I don't think I have.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
But in Winter Soldier, he's basically his greatest villain or his greatest adversary is someone that he doesn't want to hurt. And so like, and you see him struggle with that, but at the same time, like he never shies away from his duty as a friend and as a soldier. And it's very impressive how he's able to walk that tightrope. But you always see it, throughout even the Avengers movies, like his biggest philosophical differences with Tony Stark, where, it's a difference between being selfish and selfless and, being, rich and doing the right thing.
I love during Civil War when the hype was going for that movie, like nerds on Twitter were actually getting into arguments over like whose philosophy was more right. Like, "Oh no, I'm with Tony." It's like, there has to be accountability. It's like, "No, it's got to be Cap."
Well, that's one of the reasons why Civil War is one of my favorite Marvel movies is because like there's arguments to be made for both sides of that film. And neither one of them is wrong, really. Like if you think about it, but to see like such characters that you care about and where each one of them is coming from being pitted against each other, it's heartbreaking. And that's what makes that movie work so well.
I honestly think that is, if not the best villain, it's one of the best villains in the MCU is
Zemo or Zemo.
Zemo, yeah.
And I love how every movie just has that I could do this all day moment where Cap's getting his butt kicked and he's just like, just keeps getting back up and he's
Every
like, I
time.
could do this all day.
You can get that shirt on our store. Go to saltynerdstore.com. I have it. I made a little Captain America thing and it said, "I can do this all day."
Love it.
So you didn't like the design of like the vehicles and stuff like that?
No. It wasn't that. It was all just very like, I didn't like the fact that we didn't have a solid like half hour of Captain America being Captain America during World War II.
He wanted it to be more Captain America-y.
Yeah. I want it to be less set up for the MCU and more about Captain America. And like he said, like they had to balance, setting up all these other movies. And I feel like it was just to the detriment of the movie, but also the aesthetic choice of making it look like it was an old school war movie from the 50s.
I really like that aesthetic. I think that's one of the reasons I really like this movie. Is that the Hydra designs in particular are awesome looking to me. I mean, and a lot of them are straight up designs that they took from like Nazi stuff.
Yeah.
From like actual Nazi blueprints and photos and stuff that they were developing back in the day.
And you remember when that happened?
They extrapolated and, made them crazy and stuff like that. But, those were all the super tanks and the plane with the big propeller.
Yeah, yeah.
And those were all like legit Nazi
ideas.
Experiments. Yeah.
There was did you guys catch
the giant super V-wing plane?
Yeah. Did you guys catch the Indiana Jones reference in this movie? Where Red Skull was like, the Fuhrer digs around for trinkets in the desert. I have the master. Like he's like bragging about himself. I'm like, oh, Indiana Jones. He's talking about the Ark.
But he was really doing that. Hitler was looking for that stuff in the deserts for real.
Yeah, that's
all over the world.
Also, Walder Frey was in the beginning of this movie.
Yes.
From Game of Thrones.
He was the guy at the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I remember now.
And Hugo Weaving as Red Skull.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't get enough Red Skull in this movie.
I would have loved to have seen more Red Skull.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like he just kind of showed up after the fact.
He had good moments though.
Yeah, he had good moments, but like, I don't know, man. I just feel like this movie could have been so much better if it would just have.
The thing is, Hugo Weaving hated playing this character.
Is that why he didn't come back?
Yeah, like I think his contract had him
for like 3 movies, right?
It was like I think he was on the hook for like 6 appearances, and
he just never came back.
well, I mean, like
I think it was the makeup and that kind of stuff.
Well, they didn't have a lot for Red Skull to do at the in the following movies, and so much time had passed. They were just like, if you don't want to come back, you don't have to. And he was like, I don't want to come back.
That's a bummer, man.
Yeah,
he was great. Yeah, I don't know. Just for me, like it's not my favorite. I like elements of it, and like we talked about some of our favorite moments and stuff. But just on a whole, I'm like, this movie could have been so much better.
You wanted a little more fan service?
No, not fans. I just wanted more battles. I wanted more fights.
You wanted more of a war movie.
Yeah, I wanted more of like a World War II movie with Captain America at the front and the what's his group called? His boys,
the Howling Commandos.
The Howling Commandos. Like I wanted that movie, and I just didn't feel like I got it.
I wanted more Dum Dum Dugan. It's funny because the principal from the Spider-Man movies, the Asian guy. He was the same actor who played his grandfather in this movie.
He has his grandfather's photo is in the principal's office in Spider-Man movies.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
so it's those little connections like that I love about
the MCU is great for that kind of stuff, man. Like there's a lot of attention to detail, and it's
like in
the event in New York. There's a lot of that all over.
In Winter Soldier, when they go back to the Hydra or to the old Shield base, there's just a picture of Tommy Lee Jones in the background. It's just like, oh, I remember him.
Don't spoil it. You got to watch that tonight.
I will.
It's the best. Like it's got to be in the top 3.
It's definitely
for MCU movies.
Probably the best Captain America movie.
Yeah,
I think.
It's funny because each Captain America movie is kind of like a different genre. Where like the first one is kind of like a war movie. The second one's a political thriller, like straight up. And the third one, I guess you'd just call it more of a superhero movie.
And they're almost
Civil War,
and they're almost pseudo Avengers movies.
Yeah,
for sure.
Everybody's in these things. You know, it's not just these aren't Captain America solo movies.
I like
Iron Man movies.
Yeah,
these are. Everybody's in these Captain America.
I do
movies.
like that they have to keep coming up with excuses as to why they don't have everybody there. Like, hey, why don't you just call Thor? Like, he could come and take care of this. Yeah, he's busy on some other planet.
He's out in space.
It's pretty funny.
We don't need Thor.
Nah, we can handle it.
I don't need no stinking hammer.
We got okay. At some point in time, we have to do a podcast about the MCU because there's so many freaking cool moments about like when
that's a lot of movies.
When Captain America was fighting Thor for the first time in the Avengers. That's so much fun.
I mean, Kadish and I have time to watch them, but y'all don't.
I've seen them all.
I've seen them all.
Absolutely. I mean, I turn them on.
We've already seen everything.
I turn
no,
MCU
but you have
movies
to
on
do
for
a
fun.
fresh watch for the pod.
I do agree. You should.
Don't just be like, I saw that when it came out, Vader.
No, that's not what I mean. It's like I could go home tonight and turn Thor on just for fun.
Yeah.
That's right there. Disney Plus. It's great. That's.
I tell you though, Thor didn't get good until the third one.
Yeah, I agree.
I know. I like Thor too. I know.
Dark
I like
World?
the first one.
Yeah,
Really?
I did.
That's the roughest one.
I know it's the roughest one,
I can't
but there's just parts of that movie that I kind of like.
I can't wait to talk about that.
It's an aesthetic thing. I like the dark elves.
Okay.
I like the darkness. I
Can't do that anymore, though. Can't have
just-
a race of evil people.
Oh yeah, ooh.
It's against the rules.
They can't be. They're a race of people, so they can't all be evil.
Yeah.
because that's
Well, that's like
whatever.
That's another thing that the MCU kind of like ushered in was like the bad guys have to have a legitimate reason to be evil. They can't just be evil for the sake of being evil. Like you see all the bad guys that always
Those
like
goddamn Scree and Skrulls and whatever the hell they're called.
there always has to be some
It's like they're Skrulls. They sound evil, so they're evil. Okay.
I tell you, the best MCU crossover was in Ragnarok, where Thor and Doctor Strange get together. That was
Oh, yeah.
hilarious. I
Doctor
love
Strange. That is another one that's really high on my list.
That was a good
I
movie.
really enjoyed that movie. So
All right, well, we'll talk about the MCU some other time. Captain America, final thoughts. I feel like it has a ton of potential, but I don't think it really quite got there because like you mentioned, like Kadish mentioned, it was so dragged down by having to do all this setup for all these other movies. I feel like there's just something missing about this movie for me.
I didn't feel like they were setting up other movies. I didn't feel like it's like when I watched it, it's like, oh, they're setting this up, they're setting that up. It was just a natural part of the show. It's like, oh, this is where Shield starts. That's pretty cool, and there's Tony Stark's dad, and it's just they're just characters in the show. So yeah, it was fun.
Jude, any final thoughts?
Well, like I said, I like it, but I guess maybe after I watch Winter Soldier, I'll do a comparison and tell you what I really think.
So much better. So much better.
Don't hype it up too much.
Sorry. Kadish, any final thoughts on Captain America, the First Avenger?
I just think it was a great introduction to the character. I liked what Marvel did with it, and it was a great setup not only for the future Captain America movies, but also for the Avengers, which I believe was the next movie after this one in the MCU. So, you can watch this movie and still be like, yeah, America,
Yeah.
good job.
What did Spielberg say? Like Nazis are always the best villain because nobody feels bad if you kill a bunch of them.
Pretty much.
True.
So, yeah, when all else fails, you don't have any bad guys. you
Yeah.
just
What
put a bunch
about
of
that
Nazis
at the
in.
end when Nick Fury shows up and they got him stuck in that little
Oh,
room
in Times Square.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool how they
was
did
pretty
that
cool.
too. So.
Is this the movie where he's got the boxing bag, or was that Winter Soldier?
I believe that was Avengers.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, that's one of my favorite Captain America moments where he's sitting there, he's punching the bag, he's having all these flashbacks of World War II, and he just knocks the bag off the beam and throws it against the wall. I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
that's cool.
I just remember watching all the Iron Man and Thor movies and stuff like that, and getting those little hints of the future team up, and then we finally get the Avengers, and you're just like, yeah.
MCU, it's a good group. Of
They
movies.
really know a lot about setting up things up and paying them off.
It's your favorite thing ever.
That's because it's correct. It's the correct way to do it.
Yeah,
we can talk about this later, but man, think about the logistics of this MCU stuff.
oh, it's insane.
It's like 20 movies, right?
Yeah, 23, I think total.
And it's like they all
We're
flow.
going to have to take a whole full month for
Oh,
it.
for sure. And they
Yeah.
all flow together like they're supposed to. It's just it was great.
Yeah,
love it.
A few little missteps.
He has a hard time
here and there.
watching 3 movies.
I
Imagine you're like,
know.
all right, it's time to watch the MCU.
Yeah.
I've seen everyone in the theater. I dragged my wife to every one.
There you go.
And she hates me for it. Still.
You have to rewatch all of them.
Yeah,
It's no problem.
cool. Well, now we know.
Yeah.
I can't really think of a maybe Captain Marvel, but a MCU movie that was just beyond redemption. Something that I'd hate to watch again.
I could watch Captain Marvel again. It wasn't as terrible as everybody.
It was a very mediocre
Yeah, it wasn't.
It wasn't
good,
great, but I think I got far
but
too much.
I can
hate.
watch it for the show.